we often ignore the faith component of faith-based development. Faith says that if we believe and trust in God to do what it is we can't see, that miracles will come to pass. And the Beacon Center is a miracle because in the midst of that, the only debt that the church had was 3 million. Everything else is paying for itself. And so, we're at a point now where we've got about 2 million more to pay off out of a $60 million project. And we look forward to resolving that debt. And we continue to thank God for 300 families who are smiling, happy, and rejoicing because they're living in truly affordable housing. What happens when faith moves beyond the four walls and into the heart of our communities? Welcome to the Faith-Based Development Podcast. I'm Joe Daniels alongside my co-host, Tiffany Daniels. Together, we'll explore how faith, leadership, and strategic partnerships are helping communities flourish. Let's join today's conversation. Hey, everybody, this is Joe Daniels. I am the lead pastor of the Emory Fellowship, and I have a wonderful co-host. Co-host, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Tiffany Daniels and I work in corporate America and real estate.
It's great to be with you on this podcast. Welcome everybody to the Faith-Based Development Podcast. We can't wait for all of the episodes that we are going to be blessed with. We're looking forward to delving into the faith-based development community, the faith-based development concept, the faith-based development possibilities that are out here. We simply want to expand the conversation across the country and even the world to illuminate for folks and to allow folks to experience all of the possibilities that are coming when the faith community realizes just how important it is to the development and redevelopment of communities all across the country and world. Urban communities, suburban communities, rural communities. We have the opportunity just simply by who we are as faith communities and the assets that we have as faith communities to be able to change lives and change circumstances and change neighborhoods. So Tiffany, I'm excited to be with you. I know that you have so much to offer to this, and it's just great to be with you.
Yes, I appreciate that. I'm honored to co-host alongside you. I would say, what I hope to get out of this podcast and this platform is really to, like you said, illuminate, right? And help people to explore what faith-based development is about, to highlight people and projects and others' experiences, to just talk through, what that may look like in different aspects. And personally being in corporate real estate, working for a large retailer, having some experience myself in real estate, investing, development, construction, project management, I bring a different perspective that I think is very precious. And I'm just happy to be able to, speak to that a little bit and just hold space for that area. So from my perspective, that's my hope, right, is to bring those things to this platform and this community. What about you?
I think that's tremendous. I think that's exciting. I look to learn from you and learn from others. I come at this from a pastoral point of view, someone who has led a major building project and has seen vision come to pass, has seen vision to come to victory, and to provide that pastoral approach, a pastoral approach that not only involves leading a congregation, but also involves engaging a congregation in the three sectors that make up every community, the private sector, the government sector, and the public sector, and to encourage people to see that the whole concept of salvation that crosses faith plays itself out in these three sectors. And as these three sectors come together, as we say in the church, eyes have not seen and ears have not heard, neither has it entered the hearts of men and women the great things that God will do for us. And so to be able to bring that perspective to your perspective, and for the two of us to bring other stories and other perspectives of people who will be joining us in this podcast is just exciting. And
Yes.
I can't wait.
Well, let's get started, right? So you are really our first guest on this platform, and we want to highlight you. We want to highlight, what you've been involved in, and what better way to start with you spearheading the Beacon Center project. So let's dive into that, because I know that you have a lot to offer, explore, and give us some insight into, what that project is all about, right? So let's jump into it. So tell us about the Beacon Center, how it came about, and that initial phase, kind of the initial introduction to the Beacon Center project.
The Beacon Center project really just emerged. One day I was standing in a cleaners across the street. That cleaners has not been there for 15 years now. Nothing has been in that space since the cleaners closed. But I went to take some shirts to get cleaned one day and was standing in line waiting to be served. And I just turned around and looked out the window, and all of a sudden, literally, the Lord began to show me and illuminate for me that the block that our church was on was going to be redeveloped, and that we were the ones who would spearhead the redevelopment. At the time, our congregation was literally in a community infiltrated by crack cocaine and heroin distribution and drunkenness and homelessness and transient lifestyles and you name it. Urban church, urban community, Georgia Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C., and Ward 4 of D.C. And we were in the midst of urban blight. You could go several blocks and not see the blight, but right where we were in the middle of the blight. And so we began to hear a call and to hear a commission that if we were going to make faith real, which faith communities really need to make our faith real, our faith could not be real just on Sunday morning or when we worshiped. Our faith had to be seen in community. And so that really began the journey of the Beacon Center.
So literally, it came from the Lord speaking to you, first of all, and showing you this vision of what redeveloping the area would look like, essentially for the benefit of the community with respect to what the community was currently going through, right? And your church sitting there.
Yeah, it came from that, but it also came from the fact that our folks began to leave the sanctuary and go out into community and serve people at their point of need. I always talk about the fact that vision is shared. That it's not my vision, it's God's vision, and that God speaks vision when three things come together: when the leader's purpose and the congregation's passion and the community's voice, when they intersect. It is in that place of intersection that God speaks vision. It's my responsibility as the pastor to cast the vision, but the vision comes from those particular three areas. And so when I looked out the window, I began to see, I believe, what God was illuminating in the midst of all of us, in the midst of the congregation, as well as the community around us, and that God had a different plan for us to live whole.
Yeah. So now talk about the challenges that came with that, right? Because you have to influence the congregation, right? You talked about casting the vision. Walk us through, what were some of those larger challenges of, getting people on board and getting the community involved with this vision of what the Beacon Center would be.
Sure. So just for context, the Beacon Center is a 99-unit, fully affordable rental housing, commercial development, and congregational development facility. A $60 million project. That is a miracle of God, because our congregation is only 400 members. And I would say 50% of our membership is working class. And so you're talking about a congregation that does not have a whole lot of money, is not filthy rich, is not a mega church per se, but we've always had mega vision. And so we've been really blessed and excited to live out that mega vision. How did this come to pass? Well, it didn't start out as a $60 million project. We were simply looking for real estate up and down Georgia Avenue. We had started to house families who were homeless within our congregation. Literally, we were housing people in our sanctuary and housing people in other places of the church. We had people who were volunteering to sleep over. We partnered with a group called Capitol Hill Group Ministries at the time, and they would take families who were homeless during the day and train and equip and prepare for work and find work for persons who were homeless. In the evening at 7 o'clock, we would receive families and be with them during the evening, feed them, do homework for the kids, spend the night. And then at 7 a.m. the next morning, families were out. We did this for about 3 years consistent, and we ended up expanding the partnership by connecting with a Jewish Community Development Corporation called Yahad. And so here we were, a Christian church partnering with a Jewish group to do deeper development, deeper faith-based development. Through that partnership, we were able to renovate a house that we owned as a church, and we used that house to expand transitional housing. And while we were doing that, we were also feeding people on the street. And so these two dynamics of housing people who were transient and feeding people who were hungry were literally working together as I crossed the street that day and looked out the window of the cleaners across the street.
wow.
And so things expanded rapidly, and we were like, we need to find more places to house people. So we were looking up and down Georgia Avenue for property. We didn't have two nickels to rub together, but we had big vision. And we came very close on 3 particular properties, but fell short every time. At the 11th hour, 30th minute, the deal would fall through. And one day, one of our members said, well, why don't we build here? And we had never thought about it. And lo and behold, when we began to check with our denomination and do some surveys and the like, we realized we had air rights, we could go up, and that we literally were looking at 185,000 square feet that we could build on. And so
My Lord.
that's how we got started.
I love how that came together because, I mean, you highlighted your church going out in the community.
Yes.
You highlighted the community having needs and the church being able to provide that. I mean, that's what the church is called to do. You
Yes.
housed, you fed. And so it sounds like y'all had great vision, right? And a commitment to
Yes.
really to work
Yeah.
together, to be on the same page, to
Yeah.
agree on what this could
Yeah.
be.
We literally were doing faith-based development and didn't know we were doing it, or we weren't necessarily calling it that, but it was faith-based development. We were
Yeah.
developing people
That's right.
as we were developing ourselves and being developed
That's
by
right.
others and by God. So we started looking up and down for property, and when we realized we could build on our own land, which, the 2 biggest words in development, in property development, as you know from your experience, is site control, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you control
yeah.
the site, then you can do stuff. And what folks need to really, really understand, people in the faith-based community, is we have assets galore. We have property assets, we have people assets, we have all kinds of assets. As we put them to use, then the sky is the limit. We
Yeah.
were starting with a small project. We figured we'd build maybe 10 units, something like that. And when we realized we had 185,000 square feet,
Yeah.
what we thought might be a $3 million project went to a $18 million project, went to a $36 million project, went to a $50 million, and then it went to a $60 million project. And we were like, people were like, where are we going to get this money?
Right.
We're a congregation of 400 people. We were worshiping a little over 200. Where are we going to find this kind of money?
Right. Yeah. So that goes into the next segment is really the ecosystem of what it takes to get this done.
Yeah.
The good thing is that, like, you've already mentioned some partnerships that you had in the church, whether it was with the Jewish community or the Capital Partners, right? But when it comes to everything else that is needed, and there is a plethora of, partners and people and organizations and financial institutions where we're going to get the money. So talk to us about who were the key players in making this happen and where did the money come from? That's my biggest question.
So the biggest key player, first and foremost, was us, because we had to decide that this is what God was calling us to do. And so I came back across the street from the cleaners and I began to preach and teach about vision. And the congregation caught hold of it. And we could see the evidence of it as we were going out to serve people in community. And so we had to be clear. And that's really big with faith-based development, particularly when you're going out into community, out into the private and governmental sectors. People want to know, are you clear about what it is that you have been charged to do? And so we became very clear in our conversations, in our preaching, in our teaching, our Bible studies, our prayer meetings, our fellowshipping with one another, our interacting with one another as a congregation, and in our one-on-one relational meetings that we had with people in our community. Because a church can, or a faith-based community can decide it wants to do something, but unless you know that this is what your community wants and what your community needs, then you could be barking up a tree that you don't need to be barking up. So we went out to the community and did close to 1,000 one-on-one meetings with people in our community, just to hear what it was that they saw, what it was that they wanted, what they felt the greatest need in their community was. And what we kept hearing from people was, we need an affordable place to live. It's too expensive here. We're being priced out. Property taxes are going up. I want to be in this neighborhood because I've lived here all my life, but gentrification is beginning to pressure me. And so what it became very clear for us, first and foremost, is that God was calling us to provide affordable housing to marginalized and disenfranchised people, people who rapidly were not being able to afford to stay in the community they loved or in the community that they wanted to be in. So that, number one, that's where we started. We then, at the same time, we were doing community organizing through an organization that myself and our church helped to found called the Washington Interfaith Network. So we were doing social justice stuff. We were interacting with government and private sector officials. We were organizing amongst 50 churches. I should say we grew up to a point of 80 churches where we were organizing and leveraging our collective power, 80 congregations, Jewish synagogues, labor unions, where we were all organizing in order for certain issues that everybody was facing to address. At the same time, affordable housing was becoming an issue in our neighborhood. It was becoming a citywide issue. And so that helped us as we were organizing in a broader scale as well as in our neighborhood to begin to leverage government. And so what we did was we started within because we said, if we're going to build this thing, we need to have skin in the game. So while we were doing fundraising and had 2 capital campaigns, we raised $1.4 million in 2 capital campaigns. We took that money and our land and leveraged it and went to the mayor and went to private sector partners and said, we have a collective problem in the city and we want to do something about it. We have 1.4 million and we have land. How can we partner? And that's where the conversations began to start raising this money that we needed.
That is incredible. I love how you started with yourselves, right? The congregation,
Yes.
the community, getting
Yeah.
everyone, the other church and faith-based partnerships.
Yes.
For my clarity, help me understand the 80 churches involvement. What was that about exactly?
So we felt at the time because this is all interwoven, right? So shortly after I started at Emory, DC was in a mess. DC had lost its bond rating on Wall Street. Crack cocaine was infecting the city. We had corruption in government. We had leaders who had lost their way, and the church community and the broader faith community came together and said, we have a collective problem here and we need to do something about it. And so white churches were meeting with black churches, meeting with Latino churches, meeting with unions and meeting with synagogues and meeting with mosques.
Yeah,
And
because it's
so
such a melting pot.
it's a melting,
Yeah.
it's a melting pot, right? And we found ourselves coalescing around a common vision. And that is that we want our communities to be whole. And that's what faith-based development does, whether it's housing or food or medicine or education or job training or whatever it is, faith-based development helps people become whole. And so when we organized this network, we began meeting across the city to begin addressing the issues that we identified. One of them was affordable housing. It just so happened that affordable housing was real for us and we went for it. But for others, it was education. And for others, it was something else. And so that's how all of this kind of coalesced.
Man, that's awesome. Kind of getting into the playbook.
Yeah.
Any other major partnerships that you want to highlight when it comes to like just the whole pot of what this project
Yes.
entailed?
Yes. Yes. So literally, we had raised the 1.4, but it's a $60 million project, right?
Yeah.
So
So,
we need a whole lot more money, right? So we needed to go into private entities and we needed to go to government. We started by going to our mayor. Our mayor happened to be our councilwoman at the time. And so when she was on city council and she was leading the economic development committee of city council. So we brought our vision to her. She bought into it. Then she ended up becoming mayor and she still bought into it. And through that partnership and relationship and leveraging our collective citywide community power as well as our local neighborhood power, because you've got to do both to really leverage all of what you want, we were able to get large chunks of community development block grant money or housing production trust fund, what we call it here in DC. We were able to get that money. And then we were able to leverage that money to get new market tax credits, 9% tax credits, low income tax credits, other benefits that come when you're able to pool partnerships together. We were able to get bank financing. We were able to get some private donation financing. And all of this ended up leading us to get $57 million. And if I tell a quick story, we had $57 million organized, but the project is 60 million. And we got to a point where we needed 3 million to close the deal and be able to sign a construction contract. And so we said to ourselves, well, the private sector and the government sector has come together to do this. Surely the church will step up. We went to our denomination, to one of the funding entities in our denomination, said, we need $3 million in 30 days. Can you provide it for us? And of course, everybody's saying, no, why are you coming here? No, no, no. But we presented this to our one of our denominational bodies and presented the vision. And they were so overwhelmed by the vision that they started doing things that they'd never, ever done before. Never done before. And so we went to them, and initially the answer was no. By the time we presented the vision and they saw it, the answer was yes. And within 30 days, they made a $3 million commitment, and we were on our way. And so that's faith, right? We often ignore the faith component of faith-based development. Faith says that if we believe and trust in God to do what it is we can't see, that miracles will come to pass. And the Beacon Center is a miracle, because in the midst of that, the only debt that the church had was $3 million. Everything else is paying for itself.
wow.
And so, we're at a point now where we've got about $2 million more to pay off out of a $60 million project. And we look forward to resolving that debt. And we continue to thank God for 300 families who are smiling, happy, and rejoicing because they're living in truly affordable housing.
That's a blessing. That's such a blessing
Yeah.
to the community, to the congregation. And that is what faith in action looks like,
Yeah.
right? It is believing, but it's also doing. And I love how, again, sort of, looking within, like, hey, let's take this up, let's take this up to, our church and, our
Yeah.
leadership to see,
Yeah.
how we can continue to leverage. Somebody gonna give us this $3 million,
Somebody-
loan us, whatever that looks like. We're gonna close
Right.
this gap.
Exactly. Somebody's gonna give
It's
it.
awesome.
And you hit it right on the head when you said, you appreciated how we looked within and started within. What's so critical to faith-based development is that the faith-based entity be clear about its mission, because faith-based development is driven by mission. And so often we get into projects or we start things because the church sees that it might make some money off of something, right? And we're in a time now, we're in a time across this country where churches are having to make some serious decisions around their survival, around their existence, whether they're urban, suburban, or rural, how they're going to make it, etc. The answer is in embracing mission. And a congregation that embraces a mission being, this is what God wants us to do, and this is how we're going to do it. When a congregation becomes clear about that, the possibilities are endless. What the thing that allowed us to do what we've done is that God made it clear in this particular instance that we were to provide affordable housing for marginalized and disenfranchised people. So we were not to build market rate housing. We were to build affordable housing. In this instance, this is what we were called to do. And we stuck to it because we were pressured by developers to build market rate. They said, build market rate, you'll have tons of money to do what it is that you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. But had we built market rate, we would have sold out on the very people who we had built relationship with in neighborhoods who were saying, I need an affordable place to live. Because we stuck to vision, we were able to build a building, 99 units, at 60% of the average median income of a typical resident in Washington, D.C., of an average resident in Washington, D.C., which is, when we built, it was $120,000 a year. We were able to build housing for people at 60% of that rate. So when people moved into the Beacon Center, they were, if they moved into a 3-bedroom, they were paying rent of $1,500 a month. And in a city at that time where an average 2-bedroom apartment was $3,000 to $3,200 a month, we were building truly affordable housing. And there has not been housing like we've built at the scale that we've built it for at least 3 decades, we've been told. For at least 3 decades, if not in the history of the city. And so this again amplifies to the possibilities that are out there for faith-based communities who will delve into faith-based development and stick to it in powerful ways. Yeah, this
I'm
thing is
like
rich.
re-inspired all over again. I
This
mean, I've
is
heard
rich.
the story,
This is
right?
rich.
In other contexts and like, but
Yeah,
there's so much, depth involved in the story and,
yeah.
behind it and what it takes. One off the map question. How long did it take from the initial vision to opening the first unit to the first resident?
That's a great question. And every project will have its journey, and every project, depending on what you do, will have its time frame. Okay. So when I looked out that window and saw what God was revealing, that was 1994. Okay. All right, that was 1994. That was 32 years ago? That was
Oh, yeah.
1994. Okay. And
Wow.
different things happened at that point, as I said, that built up to that. We started, again, feeding people in the community. We started using the asset that we had as a church building and the asset that we had as an old parsonage to start housing families who were transient. We started building partnerships along the way, and we kept doing mission, which was, again, in this case, ministry to the marginalized, right? That ended up manifesting itself in housing. Our ministry is still to the marginalized, right? And it manifests itself in different ways. And so we kept doing that. When I was a part of the Washington Interfaith Network, I was instrumental in leveraging the city to establish a neighborhood investment fund because there was all the development in DC at the time was taking place downtown. But the neighborhoods that make up the city and the people who live in the infrastructure and who work the infrastructure jobs, their neighborhoods were being ignored. And so we said the same money you invest downtown, you need to invest in neighborhoods. Through that, the Neighborhood Investment Act in 2005 was signed. And as a part of it, we wrote our neighborhood into the legislation, the Brightwood neighborhood. And so in 2006, we were told if you show a proposal, you can get pre-development funding. And we showed that. We built a proposal, we sent it to the city's Office of Planning, and we were able to get some initial pre-development funding that allowed us to hire a developer in 2008. So to answer your question, really things jumped off in 2008. All
Mm-hmm.
right. We didn't open the building until 2019. So that's 11 years. Okay. And people sometimes in the city will say, well, it took y'all such a long time. Well, our particular journey, we had to fight our denomination for 4 years because we had to go through a particular board in order to get approval to build. And
Mm-hmm.
there were politics on that board that tried to deny us the reality of building. With 4 years, we got through that. 2012, right? 2012, we start and then we break ground. We don't break ground yet. We start in 2012. We get all of our ducks in a row, all of our construction contract settled. We're 3 weeks before our first settlement, and we get landmarked by historic preservation. Okay. And we thought we had checked all the boxes with historic preservation because our church sits next to a federal fort. So we did all of that. But there were some people, matter of fact, there was someone from our neighborhood who had moved down near where you are in Arkansas
What?
who was paying attention to what was happening with us and put a landmark on us at the last minute. And so we had to go through 2 years of overcoming hoops with historic preservation because once your project is landmarked, it shuts down. But faith, prayer,
Mm-hmm.
perseverance, patience from our congregation kept the project moving. So if you take those 2 years out, it really took 5 years to build the Beacon Center project. But everybody's journey is different. But you've got to be
Yeah.
called to this. You've
Yeah.
got to be committed to this, not only as faith leaders who are pastors or rabbis or imams or the like, but you've got to be faithful to this and called to this work as lay people. Because without fulfilling that call and mission or being obedient to that call and mission, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. But when you are, it's just, I get excited because the possibilities are endless.
And that makes me more excited about who else we may bring on to the show. But
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
some of some of my biggest takeaways from just listening to you and just from a values perspective and just key takeaways, a clear mission, a clear vision,
Yes.
the perseverance, the commitment, right? Because of maybe how long it may take, right?
Yes.
Getting your municipalities and jurisdictions and government involved, right?
Yes.
Leveraging your assets,
Yes. Yes.
looking within, utilizing your own assets and listening to your congregation, right? Because why not build up on our own land?
Right. Right.
And so many others, but those to me, those are kind of what stands out. And then again, I kind of circle back to, this faith in action piece and how you were able to spearhead, obviously, with other leaders as well, but just bringing this to fruition and literally meeting the needs of your community, right? Those affordable
Yes.
housing units, when you could have done something else, but because you had a clear mission and vision that was clearly communicated to your people, your congregation, you were able to stand firm on what that looked like
Yes.
and raise the funds to do that in all aspects of where the money came from.
Yes.
That is phenomenal.
It's
Congratulations.
th- thank you. Thank you. You've seen it firsthand up front and it's a miracle of God. But it is a miracle of God that requires partners like yourself, like what you do in your vocation and what you do in your side hustle, helping people from a real estate point of view, but helping people in whatever vocation you find yourself in community to be able to partner and to be able to see how all of us, regardless of our vocations, can play a role and have a
Mhm.
role to play in the development of our communities. I mean,
Yeah.
you're doing it through commercial real estate. You're doing it through personal real estate development. You're doing it through helping people who may not have an affordable place to live to have an affordable place to live in the residential spectrum. And you desire to expand that in the commercial spectrum. That's a wonderful thing. It's these kinds of partnerships that
Yeah.
that when faith drives it, you can see children skipping up and down, running up and down the street, smiling because they have an affordable neighborhood to
Yeah.
live in, and families who would be 1 to 2 hours outside of town trying to find affordable places to live, find affordable places right in the communities where they've lived all their lives and worked all their lives. And that's
Absolutely.
game changing. And that's what we want to do. We want to change the game in people's lives. We want to, and that's what faith-based development needs to do, is to change the narrative of people who are struggling and suffering and to help people live
Yeah.
productive lives.
Absolutely. Well, as we wrap up here, first of all, thank you for sharing your story.
Thanks for asking me. I'm very, this is great to be with you in this podcast.
Yes, absolutely. When it comes to a faith-based development challenge, right? And again, everybody has their own sense of what faith-based development look like. We've talked a lot about today, what that looks like in our perspective. If you could challenge every faith leader in America to do one thing for their community, what would that be?
I would challenge every faith-based community to develop a discipline of one-on-one relational building and one-on-one relational meetings, to get out into your community, and that every person, every leader begin seeking to do at least 2 or 3 one-on-one relational meetings with people in your community every week, and to develop that rhythm of getting to know what makes a community tick and what a community desires to see. Because within that is an essential part of God's speaking mission and vision that then leads to what the community need is, and then leads to how a community can come together with a faith-based organization to, in fact, meet the need. I think that's the foundational thing that has to be done. It's something that faith communities don't do, and you think we would do it on a regular basis, but so often we do not take the time to do it. We have all these ideas, these dreams, etc., but unless they engage in the salvation and well-being of people holistically, unless they meet people's physical needs, their spiritual needs, their relational needs, their mental and emotional needs, and their financial needs, then we really aren't offering people the gift of salvation that we've been called to, in fact, offer. And so that's where I would start. That's the one thing that I would really encourage people, because out of that, there are going to be all kind of ideas that come. And like I said, ours was affordable housing, but somebody else's might be education. It might be starting a school. It might be starting a needed clinic. It might be starting business communities, any and everything. But you don't find that out until you begin talking, relating, building relationships with the people in your community, and then seeing the assets that you have out there. I'm
Wow.
excited. I'm excited,
Wow.
Tiffany, about what we're going to be doing. I'm excited about what we're going to be doing, because you and I are going to be talking. You and I are going to be talking to leaders all across
Yes,
the country.
yes. Let's get into that a little
We're going to
bit.
be we're going to be talking to leaders all across the country who come from the development world, who come from the corporate America world, like yourself, who come from the education world, the food industry. We're going to be talking with people who are engaged heavily in faith-based development, philanthropers, financiers,
Other
politicians,
pastors
other
and
pastors. We're going to be developers.
developers.
We're going to be talking with everybody
Yeah,
who
yeah.
has not only a stake, but has a desire to partner in the faith-based community to change communities and change lives. And so that's the journey we're on. And it's exciting, because I believe that as we amplify these stories and as we talk to people and get their stories and their experiences and their visions that have become victory, man, we're going to create a community of
Yeah.
leaders that are going to be able to lean on each other to make a difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely highlighting the people and the projects, the stories, because other people can learn from that, sort
Yes.
of an education hub or what have you, but it's a resource, that we
Yes.
want people to leverage. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it. I hope that people will listen to us and join us on this journey.
I'm really looking forward to the journey with you and all that you have to offer so many people. This is exciting. I can't wait to continue
Awesome.
this process.
All right. Well, we will wrap with that. Thank y'all for listening. It's been a pleasure. Till next time, y'all.
See you soon, everybody.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this conversation encouraged you and inspired new possibilities for your community. Until next time, let's continue putting our faith into action, one community at a time.